It is episode 4. Welcome to Off the Fence with Mickey and Minnie. No?
Are you Mickey?
I guess I'm Mickey.
Well, I
don't know.
Okay. Anyways. So we have a guest today. I'm excited about this. So if you're tuning in for the first time, what we're doing is we're going to get off the fence on some food first.
Sweet.
So we have a special guest with us today, Rhonda. It's so good to have you here.
Thank you.
But we're going to start with food because that's how we should always start. And I know that as we get to know your story here in a little bit, yes. You change lives with food.
Yes, you do.
So, okay. So here's what we got. We got breakfast burritos. I'm not going to tell you where they're from. But there's 3, and I should say they are fast food locations. This is not grandma's homemade whatever. This is fast food. So here's the agenda. You take a bite or have as much as you want. I'll probably eat all mine and probably all of yours. But anyways, and then decide. There's no on the fence stuff. Okay. Which one's the best? So let's keep going.
Okay.
You can get your, and you can start with whatever you want.
Thank you.
And we'll try to eat as much in the microphone as possible. Get the munching and the grossness. There'll be people like literally who will stop. Okay, I'm gonna start with this.
Afraid I'll get on the mic.
Yum. I love a good breakfast burrito.
That is
I can taste
We all
sausage
started with the same one.
and cheese.
That's funny.
Did we really?
That's mediocre. I think what I just took a bite of.
David.
It was moist. Had cheese, sausage.
Ooh,
Okay.
this one.
This one has potatoes.
I'm dropping food all over the place.
There's like a taste,
And fall apart.
and then there's a texture situation going on. Like
Yeah.
I would vote 1 because of taste, but 1 because of texture.
How gross is it in the microphone?
Well, don't do it.
I know. All right.
Does it count how much you wear?
I dropped some on the floor.
All right.
So if we don't have mine.
Oh, bummer. You know what?
Oh, shoot. This one's got bacon.
Oh, that's the first thing I noticed too.
Yeah, but
So they're not
it's
all
really dry.
Treated equal. Oh, there was one try.
And I'm disappointed because I know where this one was from. I'm telling you, I am a connoisseur.
Anything with bacon wins, though.
Let's see. That's why this is going to be unfair. But I think
dry.
Right.
I'm ready.
That's not dry.
Are you guys ready? I'm ready. I'm going to look.
I have
I'm
to.
going to look. I've got them
I've got a
ordered.
big mouth.
I've got them ordered. Best, middle, last.
Oh,
So the best, Taco John's.
I knew you were going to say that. See, because that's a texture thing. Like nothing was dry. But my favorite is the McDonald's one. But it's because it's comfort to me because that's McDonald's breakfast burrito is like home for me. The Taco Bell one, I love Taco Bell.
Taco Bell was my middle one. Taco John's.
Bell was my least favorite.
Taco John's, Taco Bell, and then
The Taco Bell one
McDonald's.
was really dry for me. It was too
The Taco
dry.
Bell one had bacon in it.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, that almost moved up, but it didn't.
Yeah, it's too dry. The Taco John's
I'm somewhat offended.
is really tasty. The McDonald's one though is my favorite by far. But
Is
that's
it
because
really?
It's like McDonald's
I
breakfast burritos are like my.
I think because it was softer. It
It's
was dried
softer.
out.
So Rhonda, you literally make food for other people. What's the best one of those 3? I understand that they're.
It goes to a place that I never
I know it,
never drive through. McDonald's.
McDonald's is your
High five.
both of yours first.
McDonald's mainly because I mean if you think about it, it's a drive-through. You're wanting a burrito so that you can eat in the car.
Right.
So if I want the burrito to eat in the car, I don't want it all over the place
Yes.
because then I'd have to find the bacon that dropped on the floor because you can't waste the bacon.
Right.
And then I could get in a car accident. And so
Yeah.
It's amazing how you guys think.
yeah. Well,
Of course,
take a look.
both of you are wrong, but it's fine.
You're judging off of bacon though, and that was the driest one.
But it's interesting how you both are thinking
Yeah,
that
convenience.
what you're putting into the equation is the convenience of the actual
We're
burrito.
moms. That's
It's
the
just
Lord literally
fascinating to
wired
me.
our brains
It's
that
human
way.
behavior.
Yeah,
like
you have to.
Because I would agree, of all of them, the McDonald's one was the easiest to eat because it had the least amount of stuff in it,
True.
and I would think was the least
But that's why
cheesy.
That's why you get them like 2 for $1. That's why they sell them that way.
Yeah. So if I wanted a really good burrito, I would have made it before I left the house.
We probably should have had you do that, but we love you so much that we wanted you to have some time off.
Yeah.
The Taco Bell is my favorite fast food restaurant. The night that I knew David was going to propose to me, he asked where I wanted to go eat, and I told him Taco Bell. And I even knew that he was going to propose to me. And I still was like, I don't care. Propose to me at Taco Bell. We didn't go to Taco Bell. But I love it. I have a long-standing relationship with that place.
That's funny because
But it was my least favorite.
David and I did not eat at our wedding, and we were going to visit someone in the hospital. And because we did not eat, we drove through the McDonald's
No way.
to get
really
wedding
hard.
dinner.
It's really hard when you
Yes.
are the guest of honor, though, because everybody wants to talk. I'm just going to keep eating.
Yes. So that was convenience as well. Mm-hmm. Henceforth, the drive-through.
Do you remember what you got? Was it McRib season?
Oh, no.
I've
believe
never
that
had a
was
McRib.
Way beyond.
I watched the making of the McRib the other day. I could never have a McRib now. I am sorry.
Oh,
I've never.
I watched
how it's made?
Yeah.
Ooh. It's not even rib.
all over me.
It's literally
like hot
molded.
dogs.
It's
Kind of like, bologna. Yeah.
oh man. Well,
Yeah. We just ruined that for everyone.
yeah. Thank you for indulging on.
Those were good. I was starving.
So what's interesting? So I ate more, all of them. So I originally put McDonald's at last because Taco Bell had bacon in it. Mm-hmm. But the more I ate it, the drier it was. Which doesn't make sense how bacon. It shouldn't. Anyways,
It wasn't fresh bacon, babe. It's
I'm
the
glad you said
pre-cooked.
that.
Okay,
It's
so-
the pre-cooked.
Bacon bits.
The pre-cooked.
So the Taco Bell one, in the end, I would move to the back of the line, even though it had bacon, which is so frustrating for me to say out loud. But it wasn't. It was dry.
Bacon can't save the world.
So I would go Taco John's, McDonald's,
Okay.
Taco Bell,
So you're still wrong, but you've come closer to where we are.
and I would agree that the Taco John's is super messy,
Yeah.
Yes.
comparatively speaking.
It had a lot
But
more in it, though.
But I gotta tell you, what they did is they put those hash browns in there, and that's like crack
probably mashed up
cocaine to
potato
me.
olays.
I mean, if I knew what crack cocaine was,
Yeah.
which I don't, but if I did, that's
That's
what it would
probably
be.
what it would be like.
I would have had to have chocolate in it if it was crack cocaine.
Well, Rhonda, thanks for joining us. Now that we're off the fence on breakfast burritos, which I'm just to acknowledge right now,
So full right now.
I don't know if
McDonald's.
I don't know if I've ever had a breakfast burrito that you've made. I guarantee you, it's better than
Oh,
everything
yeah,
we just
100%.
ate. So, what people may not know is your story, and that's why goal number one is that people hear your story, and I'm going to give it a title. There is a difference in life between risk and faith. Sometimes we, especially if you're a follower of Jesus, and there's something in us that I think it's also taught that we should live by faith, and we do. We live by faith, but it is so easy for things to get crossed, and we're not living by faith. We're living by risk. And God has not called us to live by risk. He's not saying. In fact, one of the temptations of Jesus was basically, "Hey, Jesus, jump off this cliff and be saved," which is risk. That's one of the temptations of the devil, is to get us to believe we are living by faith, but we've just taken an adventure. Which adventures are great, are fine typically, but. So your story, let me go back. Let's go to the beginning. When I would say the beginning is, you didn't used to do what you're currently doing.
Correct.
What were you doing?
I was teaching, which I love. I love teaching.
Okay. What were you teaching?
I was teaching third grade at the time.
My mom was my third grade teacher.
We have a third grader right now, and that is no joke, being a third grade teacher.
Okay.
He's exciting.
So to be a third grade teacher, that meant you went to college.
Yes.
So,
Sometimes I wonder because I do a book,
so
kind of teach by number kind of thing now.
okay. So tell me a little bit about, so when did you decide to be a teacher, and you obviously then eventually went to get schooling to be a teacher, and
So a little bit of non-trad. We were living actually in Germany, and I was involved. The kids were in school and nothing else to do, so I PTA president, all of those things. And then someone said, "Hey, you should sub." And I'm like, "Hey, I could be here at the school and get paid. What's better?" better than that. So started teaching from there, as far as going to school and subbing and so forth. And the teachers there just really encouraged me to go back to school because, it had been 20-something years since I had been to school.
Okay.
And so it was a little bit of a scary step for that. But I loved it. I loved being in the school and finished out when we moved to South Dakota. Okay. And so, then received my double major, elementary and special ed.
Nice.
And in 2009, graduated and started teaching from there.
Cool.
Until God spoke to me in 2016.
Okay. So you're on this path teaching and doing that thing. And you had people in your life kind of encourage it and it made sense to you. And so you did it and it was good. But then there is called a fork in the road, turn. I don't know how you reference it. Tsunami. I don't. We all have our own way of describing major changes in our lives. But I would love to hear just from you what changed, what happened, what you're teaching, and then you're not.
So love teaching. Like I said, continue to teach, and just really spending more time in the Word. I was doing a study. The best yes, looking at what you're saying yes to and what you're saying no to. And I know Katy can agree that we are yesers. Okay. And it just comes naturally. We say yes to so many things. And just spent like the whole day praying, and God, was speaking to me that I want you to take the things that you love. You love people and you love food. Said nothing about teaching, but you love people and food, and I want you to bring that together. And of course, the teacher that I am, I wanted to know what it looked like, what's the time frame, all of those details, because that's where my mindset was, like, okay, I can do this as long as I have a plan. And it just, in the past, taking a leap of faith, like jumping into it, which would be more of the risk, the jump. This was, God says, I want you to take a step. I want blindly take a step of faith, knowing that this is what he called me to do, but not knowing what that looked like.
Okay.
And that, it was scary in the sense because you can't see and you don't have the plan, but at the same time, the reassurance of God has called me to do this. And he will be with me every step of the way. And that's where I needed to do. It wasn't a question. The question was more of how and what it looks like, not whether to do it or not. And so that was, it was just taking that one step. And the scariest part was telling people.
Really?
Because when you tell people, it was like official.
Gotcha.
And so when you started sharing with people, that's when failing is likely, because people know that this is what God has called you to do. So if you don't do it, then what?
Yeah.
And
almost a sense of accountability too, though, because then they're going to ask you, "Hey, how is that going?" And you're like,
And so every step, just spending more time in the Word and just allowing God to be that next step instead of me saying, okay, I'm going to walk this way. And not to say that I didn't, because I did put in my notice at the end of the school year. But I also knew surround yourself. You're not doing this by yourself. Yeah. And so surround yourself with people that are godly and are walking their life out with the Lord, and share with them what you're wanting to do. And, some of that is safety too, that, they're not going to criticize you.
Right.
But you should be surrounding with Christian counsel, and how do you walk this out? And so John with Love Inc. actually had his student in my classroom. Okay. And he was the very first person that I shared, hey, I'm a little nervous telling you this because your child is in my classroom, but I don't want to teach anymore. God's not calling me to teach anymore. It's only November, but it's okay. The rest of the school year will be good. And just being able to open up there and know that John was praying for me and to give me wisdom, as far as a nonprofit and say you must be profitable. And I thought, well, that's kind of an oxymoron. How can you want to give and give away, but you can't continue to give if you aren't able to bring something back. And so business-wise.
Yep.
And so anyways, that was just a big part, just continuously surrounding yourself and sharing what God has called and knowing that the next step is scary and that it is about faith and knowing that reassuring piece, knowing that this is what God has called you to do. So there's no question about it. God hasn't called me to step off of a ledge,
Right.
Because I do have some common sense, and I know there'd be a lot of prayer time to go, are you sure you want me to do this?
Right.
Maybe I would question if he wanted me to put my son on an altar. I would.
Yeah.
I'd be spending some time in prayer with that. But being able to pull people together, people and food, and everyone likes food, whether it is from McDonald's
Amen.
or from Taco Bell. And so, and he fed. Jesus was bringing people together with food as well, going to homes and sitting down and having a conversation with them. And that was the commonality piece. And so just continuing to walk this out, my sister-in-law from Florida shared, hey, when you come down for Thanksgiving, you have to go to this place called Mosaic. Okay. And it's a pay what you can cafe. And that was one of the first glimpses of sight. I felt like God saying, okay, here's a picture that you can see, something tangible. And because of your faith, willing to not put it all in your court, I'm going to give you a glimpse of what this looks like. And each piece of that, throughout the journey, each time I see that I take a little pride in what I've accomplished, God says, "Oh no, that is not you whatsoever." And I see the biggest growth through this is when I completely surrender and like, Lord, I don't know what to do. I don't know what the next step is, and it's not what you've called me to do. You've not called me to know the next step. You've called me to have that faith, to trust you, and that you are in control and that you have whatever avenue is next. And it is amazing how God, after releasing that and putting that down and allowing God to do what he wants to do in your life, that you can see him. You can see him all around. And so, from...
Well, hold on. Because I'm purposefully trying to annoy some of the people listening and watching right now.
Okay.
Because they still, just so you know, we've not yet touched on the very specific details of what you do.
Okay.
This is on purpose. Because I think we need to see this. This is a part of on the fence stuff. We want to know, excuse me, we want to know like years down the road before we offer our yes or our no. And whether I hope people caught this because you just spelled out what it's like to follow God and what it should be like to follow God. It was not just a new adventure. God spoke to you. And I don't think it was an audible voice. It was more of a thought, more of something had entered your mind and you began to wrestle with it and you began to process it. But it was enough, and tell me if I'm wrong, that you began saying, I think this might be God talking to me. I think he's stirring something in me. Also, as Katy and I have talked about, you had training and schooling and teaching. And there's this illusion that maybe all of that was for naught. That was a waste of time. You should not have gone that direction. And what I want people to hear is, no, I believe that was preparation for what you're doing now. And even though your education is in some formal something, this and that, whatever it ends up being for any of us, there is a process that God lets us go through that as long as it's not sinful, which it wasn't, I think it's building you and prepping you and doing something in you, whether it's specific to the education world in your case, or just the relationships you were doing, the skills you were developing, all that kind of stuff. I just think it's important. Someone's going, how do I know the difference between faith and risk? One is where it starts, and it started with God.
Yes.
It didn't start with, I just want something new in my life, right? I don't.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
okay.
I do, like many, I'm sure, ask for that neon sign or something really big and, something that knocks or rings. And it wasn't that at all. It was that God speaking to you, not screaming, not big signs, and just continuously in my ear, this is where I want you to go. And I have you in every step of the way.
Yeah.
So now, what do you do now?
Now.
What do you spend your life doing right now?
I spend my life food. Lots of food. I spend my days at the cafe. So it is a pay what you can cafe, which means anyone and everyone that comes through the doors gets a chance to eat. So it's about food because that's what brings everyone together and brings everyone to the table. But it goes beyond that. It is about the conversations that you have and the relationships that are built at that table. And so people from all walks of life. So whether you're a lawyer, judge, whether you're a mom, whether you have a home, whether you don't have a home, are welcome. So all are welcome to come in and just build community at the table through food.
Has it been easy?
No. It's COVID season
I
too.
know.
But even before that, it's, my David, my husband, said, what are you going to do? And the do meant, how are you going to make money?
Okay.
Because teachers get paid, not a lot.
It's an honest question. Yeah.
And so what are you going to do? And I said, I'm not sure, but God's got this. And then I tried to take over the planning because that still came natural for me as the teacher. I'm leaving teaching and going to pursue whatever it looked like as the cafe. And he said, no, I want you to spend a year at Cornerstone. And I thought, Lord, that's not in the plan that I have written down.
Right.
And
Cornerstone Rescue Mission, if people don't know what that is, it's a rescue mission in our area that does serve meals. I don't know how often.
They serve 3 meals a day,
Okay.
breakfast, lunch, and dinner, anywhere from 100 to 250 each time.
I just think this is an important detail because you hear from God to start and even he even shows you.
Yes.
Yeah, I want you to make something like this, right?
Yes.
I want you to make a cafe that is pay what you can pay, but then you're at a rescue mission. You're like, this isn't.
Right. It's not on the list.
This isn't on the list.
Plan.
But I think that's important because, again, when we follow God, most of our personalities, it doesn't matter what personality you are, you have a tendency to begin to map out how this is going to work.
Yes.
How this is going to put food on your own table, how you're going to pay your bills, but also the process part of it that makes the most sense, the business plan piece to it.
Right.
But so sorry, it's the pastor in me that has to interrupt and say, but look, even though God calls us to something, we tend to do it. Well, okay, you brought up Abraham, where Abraham gets promised by God, hey, you're going to have generation after generation after generation. And he's like, sweet. And eventually gets tired of the process that God's taken him. And he and his wife usurp the process because they had their own, like, well, obviously God wants us to do this and he's not really doing it as we thought. So we're going to make our own way. And you chose not to make your own way.
Well, I definitely thought of it. I had it laid out.
Right.
But knowing, several people came to me and said, hey, you should be at Cornerstone.
Okay.
I actually didn't even interview at this position because several people talked to me about coming and doing this.
Okay.
And so I said, I'll just go sit and have a conversation with the director at the time. And we had this conversation. And before I left, I was hired for the job. And it was no interview whatsoever.
Wow.
And so I knew from then as well, like the happenings that was playing out, like this is where God wants me to be. Mm-hmm. And what I didn't realize, and a lot of times I believe in our life, is we are walking through things and we don't see it until the after effect, until it is all laid out. And then you go, that's what God was doing. That's what God wanted me to see, wanted me to be. And I do believe that God wanted me to see the people as people at Cornerstone and not as the homeless. He wanted me to see food that we as consumers that have money, you have to excuse my language, but we ask for a lot of crap.
Yep.
And so when you don't have a lot of money and you have an abundance of food, like, hey, sure, you can have these 8 cakes, does not mean that you should be eating 8 cakes. And so that time at Cornerstone really allowed me to see people and the food and how can you love on people in a healthier way.
It's beautiful.
So,
I love it too because we so often see detours. That to me would have been a detour.
yes.
We often see them as kind of an inconvenience or a just waiting and waiting and waiting. But God doesn't waste anything, and He was teaching you as you went, and it's you looking at Him for each next step, and He was able to use that because then I know the story, and I know that you connected with so many people that have been changed because of the work God's done in the cafe. But it started during your season at Cornerstone. I love that.
Yes.
I love that.
So my guess is you've got a story, and I just think I would love. I think everyone would like to hear. Tell us one story of the impact of Fork Real Cafe. I know you've got many. So, and I'm just tell you, we don't have 3 days. I know, but I'm sure 1 or 2 come to mind. Would you share one? Just like, hey, and I know. Let me preface this. You're not bragging about yourself. It's not. But let me ask this: how has God used Fork Real Cafe to do something that glorifies God?
The discussion about putting food and people together. So food comes easy for me, making food and doing all those things. Fork Real is dependent on volunteers that come in and so forth. So we have people who come through the front door looking for food, and we can build relationships with them. God has taught me people coming through the back door are just as important. So those volunteers and those that we are working with, those are who are actually serving others as well. And it's some of those times and interactions. And so we're actually working with a young lady right now that God has allowed us to be a part of her life. And things that I can't even imagine someone has been through. Just that you would never want any of your friends or family members to go through. And just being a part of the cafe and being able to share who Christ is through what you're living out and what you're walking out. Not beating that with the Bible, but sharing this is what God has done in our lives. This is what God is doing in your lives. This is what God is doing in the surrounding, the people that are here. And so she actually told me, had mentioned, she said, hey, did you see me last week at church? I was like, I did not. And we have brought her to church, and the surrounding people that she's surrounded with, she's having some new friends and new people to hang out with and build her life. And so it wasn't all about me. It was having her connected and so forth. And so we have brought her to church and welcomed her in that area. But last week when she said, hey, did you see me? And I was like, I didn't see you. I said, I was at 4:00. And she said, hey, I was at church and we were looking around and there was so many people here. I did not ask anyone, but I thought it was great. So God is working in her life as well and the things that she has gone through. But she has that courageous step on her end, that step of faith of going, I'm very inward and I'm going to go to church and see what this God is about and learn more and hear more. And so I was excited because, again, God's like, I don't need you to do this. But I'm going to use you if you will listen to me. And so I find that I see God more when I step out of the way. And I'm like, God, this is amazing. I am so thankful and grateful to be able to see what he's doing in different people's lives. And right now she's walking it out, and we're walking with her.
That's so cool.
But just to hear her just comment on how her biggest thing is belonging. Like she feels like she belongs at the cafe, and she does. She is part of our family, and that's huge. So even though I thought it was food, it went beyond that food piece to, hey, it's about. It is about people, and it's about the people that you're going to walk with, not just feed, but you're walking life out. And there's stumbles, and you continue to walk with them. You don't pull them down and say, okay, you screwed up here. I can't walk with you anymore. You're still walking with people. And Christ walked with people. Christ went to the well. And that's what I believe he's called each one of us to do. It may look different, but are you willing to take that step, not of risk, but of faith, and see what God can do, not you?
So you've heard me preach enough. I'm going to ask you a question that you've at least heard me reference. I ask my kids this. So the Rhonda now, what would you tell Rhonda before she ever heard from God, before Fork Real ever had a name, Fork Real Café, what would you go back to? You're not old, but go back to the old, or maybe the other Rhonda. What would you tell her? It doesn't have to be a whole long list. I'm just curious. What would you say now?
He's got this.
Okay.
He's got this.
Cool.
Not you. He's got this.
Well, we've got the evidence in Scripture that he does, especially when God says do this. When the difference between faith and risk is that God's a part of faith, which means you might end up being on the edge of the cliff, where you might say, I don't know how this is going to work. I don't know a lot of these details. I don't know how this is going to play out. I don't know how this is going to be sustainable. I don't know how all the questions, but he doesn't push you over. There's the faith part is that God continues at his own perfect timing to do what God wanted done in the first place. He just chooses to use us. And so I want you to know we're really proud of you.
Glorious.
I love being in a community that has Fork Real Café. So for those who are in Rapid, around Rapid, or ever want to visit the faces on the stones and decide where's a good place to eat, what are your normal hours, where do they find you? Tell us a little bit about the actual business part of it. Where do they show up? How do they show up? What do they do?
324 St. Joseph. We are on the backside of the courthouse, or as someone told me, that's actually the front, though you do not enter in that way, which is confusing.
That's confusing.
Yes. 324 St. Joseph. We are open Tuesday through Friday at lunchtime from 11 to 1:30. And so we have volunteers that come in from 9 to 3 and work, and we love to have you at any time, whether you want to come volunteer, whether you want to come cook, whether you just want to come and sit and talk at the table.
Or come just and eat.
Yes.
You make great food, and you make a bigger difference. So we're proud of you for walking in faith. It's not easy. There is no, just so you know, here's your warning. There is no plateau of where you get to the top of the mountain and you live the rest of your life at the top of the mountain. But if you keep listening to God, you'll keep doing the will of God. And the will of God is that anyone and everyone knows that he loves them. And proud of you. Thanks for giving us time. Thanks for, I guess, choosing McDonald's as the best stinking breakfast burrito.
I really do not want that to be known.
Yeah, we kind of want to keep that a secret. But proud of you.
Thank you.
We want to champion you. So anyone who wants to go eat at Fork Real Café can. If you want to give you $1 million check, they can give you $1 million check. But you guys are easy to find, I imagine, on the internet and in person. Yes. We love you very much. We love everyone listening. Thanks for tuning in.